You don't think I should bring them up
You
again
can
just to
if you
remind
want. You
myself?
can if you want. Look, it's shooting it raw. It's basically, it's a bit,
Okay, don't be too raw. Okay, it's not recording yet, is it?
of course.
Oh no, Ran, please don't record yet. Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw. So, the first photo that you sent me we're going to look about the Kids Ocean Day one, and it's a
Yes,
photo of a photo in a frame, right? So you've
yes,
got I'm just going to describe it because people are listening. So you've got the mat, right, of a framed photograph, and which is
yes,
white, and in it there's a photograph made from high above, probably with a drone or a helicopter, and it's a photo of a beach, and on the beach you can just see it almost looks like dots really, and it's like of what looks like a dolphin, and then underneath that it says protect, and there are people on the beach, and it's this I think I know this beach. It's called Repulse Bay in Hong Kong. So it's a nice little crescent, and you've got the
yes.
hills of Hong Kong, which are nice and green, that spill in closer to the water. The beach is very sandy. Looks like a sunny but hazy day. And Kids Ocean Day. So we had Michael Klubach, right? Michael? Is it
Mm-hmm.
Michael? Yeah, Michael Klubach.
Yes.
And on
Malibu Foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So we had him on the podcast, which was great. And so why do we start this conversation off with this photograph?
It's an interesting one. I think I sent this to you because I stare at it almost every single day, with it being on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I chose to have this beautiful beach photo with that symbolic picture of a dolphin and the protect underneath it to sit on my desk, maybe as a reminder of my Hong Kong days, but also perhaps as a reminder of my duty in the world. And who knows whether I was born to work on ocean issues or not, but for some reason my life path has brought me here, um, perhaps in a slightly different way to how others on your program have brought them to their respective paths, those being on the more NGO activist side of things. I've gone very much the kind of the corporate route, which found me in the fishing industry while working in Hong Kong. And this particular photo was taken, yes, during the Kids Ocean Week, where Doug Woodring first approached us and asked if our company Pacific Andes would be interested in sponsoring the event, and it was basically to get a whole bunch of kids onto the Repulse Bay beach to form the formation of a dolphin. And obviously, the week prior to that, there was a lot of engagement happening at the schools, where Doug and Michael would deliver lessons and lectures, I suppose, but in a very informal manner, so as to be inspiring for children, to basically educate them about ocean conservation and all the things happening with our ocean out there. And I was really fortunate to be a part of it because I was working as a sustainability manager at Pacific Andes at the time, and I was the key contact point for them. And I basically mobilized for the company to sponsor it because I thought it was a really, really important initiative involving youth, plus a strong message to the Hong Kong community about the importance of protecting our oceans. And so for some reason, I've kept the photo on my desk. And I think it's just a very important reminder to me of having learned so much in the industry for all those years that I worked in it. And I continue to work in it, but not for a large fishing company anymore. I'm outside of the industry in that respect, but I'm still working with industry outside of them, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an important reminder to me of what I've been so lucky and blessed to have learned along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And even though sometimes, we might get sidetracked with other initiatives, or the problem out there might seem bigger than what we can even imagine. And is it worth all that effort? Are there some other low-hanging fruits that one put their energy and attention on in life? But it's a reminder to me that to just keep going, and eventually we're going to get there. Eventually, all stakeholders will be able to work together better. And
You
the
sound
most important thing is to, yeah.
Yeah, well, you sound like an optimist. Would you describe yourself as an optimist?
I'm an eternal optimist, Ran. Oh my gosh. I think I was born an optimist. Apparently, at age 3, I was already packing my own suitcase and going off to school or whatever. No, honestly, I've just been such a go-getter from a young age.
Where were you born?
Born in Cape Town.
Okay, and that's where that's where you are right now.
I'm back here, so having been, born and bred here for all those years. I left South Africa when I was about 23.
Okay.
First went to Nepal, and then after that, so I did a volunteering stint in Nepal.
Oh wow.
And then I went to live in London after that, and then I was a few years in London before I made my way to Hong Kong.
What brought you to Hong Kong?
What brought me to Hong Kong?
Or who brought you to Hong Kong?
Who brought me to Hong Kong? That's a better question. My boyfriend at the time, a German fellow, he had a great job opportunity in Hong Kong. And so he said, you've had your chance to travel, because I'd lived, 6 months in Nepal volunteering. And he says, now it's my turn. So let's go to Hong Kong. And so I agreed, and we moved there.
Oh, nice.
And it was one of the best moves of my life. And he did say to me, it will be better for my career than I can ever imagine. And it was so, so true.
Mm-hmm. So where did the intersection come with, okay, so what did you study in university?
I studied environmental geographical science. So
Okay.
from a young age, I think it was when I was 14, I think I was writing a article or essay, would have been at the time, on river pollution. And I remember opening up, those old brown Britannica.
Yeah, Encyclopedia Britannica, yeah.
Encyclopedias. The Encyclopedia Britannica, exactly. I opened one up, and on under river pollution, or whatever the title was, I was looking up. There was a picture of a river, and it was filled with rubber tires, plastic waste, you name it. And I think I burst into tears. I was sitting in my kitchen at the time, and my mom was there, and I just started crying. And I said, "How could we do this to our planet? Like, what an awful thing!" And I think from that point on, I always just knew, okay, I'm going to go into environmental science. So that's how I landed up at University of Cape Town from age 19 onwards. I studied environmental geographical science, and that was for 4 years. So I did my honors degree, and then I kind of specialized during my honors year more in human geography, because that always fascinated me the most, was the intersection between people and the environment, and how we shape our environment so much as a human race. And so that's what got me there. And then I decided, after doing my undergrad degree and my honors degree, to do my master's. But that actually came a few years later in London. I did my master's at Forum for the Future, which focused on leadership in sustainable development.
So when I met you, it was probably, I mean, it was most likely through, I was sort of working with shark rescue and how long had you been in Hong Kong before your work landed you in marine / and then the conservation side of that, of industry, right? So how
in the fishing industry,
right? So and being in Hong Kong, that is one of the reasons why I started Shark Rescue, was because I knew that Hong Kong was like the trade hub really for global almost everything, right? So much trade happens here, and definitely in fisheries and shark products and that kind of stuff. So if you were to describe, so you've already kind of touched on it in terms of your values being, you are a conservationist, and yet your work as a scientist put you in sort of in line with industry and being more sort of optimistic or constructive or proactive. So how did that path land you here? 'Cause by the way, when you said before, oh, compared to other, your path compared to the other people,
Yes.
well, everybody's
Yes.
path is unique, and everybody lands in
True.
however they land, right? So what's interesting
True.
for me to share with other people is that I know you're definitely, from the work that you've done, one of the good people for sure. And so it's kind of, I think it's interesting to sort of share that evolution so other people can kind of see how you have manifested.
Oh gosh. First of all, I don't know if there is such a thing as good and bad people. I think we're all just people.
Okay.
First of all, and I think we migrate to that which we feel passionate about and what interests us in life. And I wouldn't even know if I'd call myself a conservationist. Gosh, even though I've been involved in conservation. Well, actually, one of my first jobs ever in Capetown was cheetah conservation.
Oh, wow.
Funnily enough.
Wow.
Yeah, that was right. That was my first job when I just left university before I decided to go overseas.
Well, I have to interrupt. Have you ever had a cheetah lick your leg?
No.
Okay. No, the reason why I asked is, hold on, listen. The reason why I asked this is because I met this guy who had done cheetah conservation, and he says, you know how like your domesticated cats, when they lick you, their tongues are really rough. And I was like, yeah. And he said, well, cheetahs, they use their tongues to peel meat off the bone. So when this cheetah was licking his leg, it was extremely abrasive.
That's an exfoliation.
Yeah. So do you have any experience with that or no?
I haven't. No, I never used to feed them. So no. I was only I wasn't even a handler. I hadn't progressed high enough to become a handler. I was more of just the general educational spokesperson, I suppose. Speaking to the public about why cheetah outreach existed, the plight of the cheetah, etc. And then they'd have the handlers handling them.
Nice.
But yes, I can imagine. Yes, the tongues.
By the way, this is the podcast. This is the podcast. Totally random questions. Totally, whatever.
Yeah, totally random. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So you going back to your question about how did I land up on this side of the space of conservation, if you call this the conservation space, which is the industry of ocean issues, it's because I suppose of what I did before moving to the fishing world, because I didn't study marine biology, right? I studied environmental geographical science, which is certainly not focused in on marine biology, but I did actually do a bit of a specialism on freshwater science and freshwater systems, inland freshwater systems. But I think it's because I chose to go the corporate route quite early on. When I landed up in Hong Kong, I thought to myself, well, where do I fit in? I've got this master's degree in leadership for sustainable development from Forum for the Future. My heart, I felt, was more in the NGO space, given my background, I suppose, and my volunteering days at university also very much introduced me to the NGO world. But I felt to myself in Hong Kong, where do I actually fit in? And whether it was by chance or not, somebody mentioned a person's name in Hong Kong, Glenn Frommer, and he's known as the father of sustainability in Hong Kong. So this was a recommendation from London, a business that I'd been introduced to via my Forum Masters program. And my contact point there said, oh, get in touch with Glenn Frommer. You're moving to Hong Kong. And so he was the first person I contacted saying, can we have a coffee? And oh, by the way, as you know, Ran, Hong Kong is all about networking, right? And meeting people for coffee. Yeah. And if you don't have a business card, you don't exist, right? Mm-hmm. And I learned that quite soon on having arrived in Hong Kong. I was like, oh, I better get a business card. Putting, Jacqui Dixon, master's student on there or something. I mean, it was so random, but you needed to have a title.
Sure.
So anyway, I met Glenn, and he was so kind and so open and supportive right from the beginning. And he said, oh, have you heard of Richard Welford from CSR Asia? And obviously talking to me for an hour, he figured out I would do quite well in that space. And CSR Asia is a was, I say was because they've been bought up by another firm called Elevate, but CSR Asia is a boutique firm, CSR kind of niche boutique CSR firm, working across Asia, multiple offices, but with a head office in Hong Kong at the time. And they, were advising companies across sectors from, it could be apparel, textiles, retail, footwear, banking industry, you name it, everything you can think of. And anyway, so I landed up, working for CSR Asia. Glenn was right. Glenn recommended I touch base with Richard Welford, which I did. I tracked him down at doing a lecture at the University of Hong Kong, and he was presenting on, and I remember so clearly, he was presenting on Nike at the time, and I think Nike had a big campaign against them on child labor, with procurement or purchasing of footwear, getting footwear produced in factories in China, and there was considered to be child labor involved. And when I heard Richard presenting on this, my heart started beating, and I was like, I've got to work for this guy. I'm going to learn so much. And so that's how I landed up tracking Richard down. And I said, Richard, hi, I've just arrived from London, just finished Forum for the Future Masters. Jonathan Porritt, threw out the name. And Richard went, Jonathan happened to be here a couple of months ago in Hong Kong, going to China on a trip there. And so he said, why don't you come in on Monday and then let's have a chat? And that's what I did. And then they started me on a project for the Shangri-La Hotels and Resorts. That was my first benchmarking project.
Oh, wow.
And from that point on, I was very much molded into the corporate social responsibility, corporate sustainability space.
Got it.
And I haven't left it since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it okay if I use this pause to move on to the next photograph, or do you want to stay on this at this point? Because the next photograph...
No, let's move.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.